I was 17 or I was 16, and my teacher in the 11th grade, who was my favorite teacher, my drama teacher, he was like, you say you're a singer and you're a songwriter and all this, whatever, but like, I've never heard anything that you've done. And I'm like,
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
but
Called
like,
you out.
yeah, he fully called me out. I was like, well, I don't know. Like, I'm shy. And he's like, no, you're not.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for doing this. I'm Adam, and this is about you and your journey in music. And we'll talk about the new record.
Okay, cool.
Sweet. So first
Thank
off,
you for
talk.
having me.
Oh, anytime, anytime. So where were you born and raised?
I was born and raised in Markham, Ontario.
What was that like? Tell me about that a little bit.
It was great. I mean, yeah, classic suburbia. Like, we lived on a street with a bunch of kids and families, and I went to school down the street. I actually went to 5 different elementary schools
Oh
in
my
my
gosh.
time.
Did
Yeah.
you move around a lot or just
No, actually, I've been in the same house since I was like 4. I just moved out a few years ago. But I was in French immersion, and the schools in the area just kept like changing from like French immersion to English to French immersion English to just English, and so I had to keep moving schools.
because you wanted to stay in the French immersion?
Yeah.
Was French your first language?
No, actually English, but my
Oh,
parents wanted me to be bilingual.
oh, that's awesome. I wish my parents would have done that for me. I grew up in San Diego, right next to the border in Mexico, and they're like, didn't seem to think it was that important, but I wish they would have.
Yeah, it ended up being great. Like, I still speak French to this day. I mean, it didn't end up being super relevant. They were like thinking, if I get like a job of some where I have to like have multiple languages, um, it would be useful living in Canada. But yeah, I ended up not using it as much. But I love that I could speak it. So
I know there are parts of Canada where you're pretty much looked at like not like you're kind of shunned if you don't know French, correct?
oh yeah, well, yeah, Quebec for sure.
Okay.
But also it's interesting in Quebec from my experience of Quebec. Like, when I go to Montreal, if you speak French, they're either like, cut it out, we can tell you're not from here, or they're like, ooh. They're
Oh,
like, yes,
really?
yeah. So it's like depends on the person there, but like either they love that you speak French or they're like, just stop. Yeah.
They're like, we
They're
know
like,
English too, so just you can cut it out.
yeah, they're like, we know that you're not from here. It's not the same.
Oh, that's funny. Do you come from a musical household at all?
No, not at all. My dad actually just recently discovered his passion for singing.
Oh,
Um,
awesome.
through karaoke. We do a lot of karaoke lately, but like growing up, no, I was the weird one. Yeah.
Were you like, as far as you can remember, obsessed with singing or?
Yeah. Like, I think I was obsessed with like getting attention, and like the way I would get that is singing and like acting and playing pretend. And so I just like did it all the time. And then when I got to be like 10, I started getting shy, and then my family started paying me to sing
Oh,
and stuff.
wow.
Like, they're like, we'll give you $5 if you sing. And then I was like, okay, I can make money doing this. So I just kept doing it.
But you were acting, right? Like, didn't you get into act or take acting lessons or went to acting school really early on too?
I did. Yeah. I started acting lessons when I was 10, I think, or maybe
Okay.
sooner. I think I started acting sooner than singing. I did acting from when I was like 6. Um, and that was, again, not because of my family. I basically had to beg them because, they were putting me in dance, and um, like, I think, yeah, dance was the main one. But like, I wasn't super into it, and I was like, I want to do acting. I want to be on Disney Channel. And they were like, okay. So yeah, I think I was like 6. And then I went to a high school for the arts as well. I went to
Okay.
Unionville High School, which is it's like an art school. Yeah.
That's awesome that your parents are so supportive of it, though. I mean, my family would have been like, yeah, that's cool that you want to do that, but like, let's, go to real school, or not real school, but like, you need to go to like the college route and this and that and the other thing, where it's like, that was pretty much useless for me at this point in my life. But it's like, I love that your parents were, supporting and putting you in an acting school.
Yeah, especially because like they knew nothing about it. Like, they knew nothing about the industry. They don't know anything about how it works. So like, they were hesitant for sure. Like, when I was 6 doing acting classes, it was cute. And then it's like, when
Right.
I wanted to go to Unionville High School for the arts and like take it more seriously, they were like, okay, but what about French? Like they wanted me to go to the French immersion high school. And I was like, I basically had to promise them I would do French all 4 years of high school to go to the art school. And they were like, okay. And then I didn't end up going to college or university, but at that point,
you didn't need to.
I was kind of working by that. I would have definitely, they would have made me go to university or college if I hadn't like had some jobs by that point.
Right.
But because I got lucky at like 17 and I had like a little break. And so they were more open to me. They're like, okay, we see proof of concept here. We see that this is working for you. So like, we want to encourage you to go after it. But they were very like, we took all the steps together for sure.
Okay. And because you were on what you were on the Disney Channel, weren't you? Or on television?
Yeah.
That's so wild that you kind of put that on the ethos and then you ended up doing that.
Yeah, I fully manifested it. It was a Family Channel show, which is like a Canadian channel, and then Disney Channel picked it up. And so we were like, holy crap. Yeah, it was huge for me, especially because like my inner child, you know, that's all I wanted when I was a kid, to be on Disney Channel.
And you're doing you're acting on the show, correct?
Yeah.
But were you always singing? Like when you were going to that art high school, was that part of it, or is it mainly acting focused?
It was mainly theater. I was in the drama program.
Okay.
And I was actually quite shy in high school to sing. I didn't really sing often. I kind of like wrote songs in private, and it was kind of like known that I could sing, and I would kind of like, I would sing like around a campfire or something, but I was a little scared in high school to like actually like show that side of me.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
So you're writing songs. Did you play an instrument at an early age at all, or is it mainly?
No, I started learning guitar when I was 12.
Okay,
Basically
so still
to
fairly young.
Yeah, help like songwriting and stuff. I have my guitar right
Oh, is
behind
that
me,
the same
actually. Yeah.
one?
No.
Oh, I was gonna say
I
that's
got
so
this.
cool.
I got this for my birthday last year. It's a Koa.
Oh wow,
Taylor.
a Taylor. I was gonna
ESP.
say it looks like a Taylor guitar. I love that.
Yeah, it's awesome. That one's awesome. So I write a lot on this one. But that's why I learned guitar, just the basics, honestly, so that I could like write songs.
Were you like writing, like creative writing or journaling? Like, was that something you were used to doing? Like, did you enjoy writing lyrics and then you just said, hey, like this could be a song?
Yeah, it was Taylor Swift for me.
Oh, I love Taylor Swift.
When I heard her songs, that was when I realized like songs were a way of expressing, you know, your emotions. And I wasn't great at expressing my emotions. I still kind of am not great at that. And so like music was my way of like, I can really like be my most vulnerable when I'm like by myself writing. And then like, it can be a song and it can be something that touches other people. And so it just like, that's when I started. I think I was like 12. Yeah.
Wow. And then you didn't end up showing people these songs until much later in life?
Yeah, I showed my parents. I showed my closest friends, and I thought I was the shit. Like it was one of those things where I was like, sorry, am I allowed to swear?
Yeah. You can say
okay. Oops, I have my like Disney Channel training.
No, you can leave that at the door. It's all good.
I thought I was the shit, so I would like kind of keep it to myself. It's almost like it's my little secret that like, oh, I write these amazing songs. Meanwhile, they weren't good. But I just like, I don't know. I think I just kind of was scared to have somebody tell me they weren't good because I loved my songs so much. So I kind of just kept them to myself.
But to be like vulnerable enough to show your parents, like I feel like that would be more terrifying than another person if it was like a deep personal song to you or a subject matter that maybe you didn't feel so comfortable sharing with them. But I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, you know what? I think it maybe was like, I think because my parents also like grew up, and I think this is also why they were so supportive of me. They grew up with parents who were very like traditional, and they had moved to Canada from Italy, and like both of them. And they were not super emotionally like supportive of my parents and weren't like they weren't super like present emotionally, I'll say. So I think my parents really tried to do that, but they also kind of struggled a little bit. They wanted it to be different for me and my brother, but like they also struggled a bit emotionally to like be there. And so I think maybe that's why I turned to songwriting, and even like especially wanted to show them my songs, because I was like, look, this is how we can like communicate. We could communicate emotionally. You can know how I feel through this song, and maybe that'll make you more comfortable to like tell me how you feel. Like I feel like I was always trying to get them to like open up and try to like open more of a like emotional dialogue, because I knew that like my family wanted that, but we all kind of had a little bit like we were still like almost like learning the emotional language.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
You were able to kind of bridge the gap with your music.
It's a really nice way to put it.
That's so cool. That is so cool. And
Yeah.
when do you start I mean, if you're playing for your friends and family, you're probably like, okay, you talked about not wanting people to tell you that they didn't like the song, right? So
Yeah.
how do you then get the courage to what do you put it up online or something? Like when do you start doing that? And was that after you were already working on and graduated, or when does the music scene, or when does the music kind of start as far as this goes?
I was 17 or I was 16, and my teacher in the 11th grade, who was my favorite teacher, my drama teacher, he was like, you say you're a singer and you're a songwriter and all this, whatever, but like, I've never heard anything that you've done. And I'm like,
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
but
Called
like,
you out.
yeah, he fully called me out. I was like, well, I don't know. Like, I'm shy. And he's like, no, you're not, which is like so true. I'm so not shy. Um, but I was just kind of scared. And he was like, you know, you got to put yourself out there. How is anything going to happen for you if you don't like try to like put yourself out there? So I was like, okay, you know what? You're right. So I threw together 2 demos on GarageBand
Mhm.
of my songs I'd written, and then I threw them up on SoundCloud. And literally, like, it was like a miracle how this happened. But um, even today, the songs only have like 3,000 listens. But one of those listens happened to be the people who were doing the music for the show Backstage that I was on.
Oh, wow.
And it was because my aunt, her old babysitter worked at a record label, and my aunt shared my song on Facebook. And so she heard it. And so she took it to her boss. And then so this like music company in called Grayson Matthews in Toronto had heard my demos, and they like brought me in and were just like, hey, like, you want to be a songwriter? I was like, yeah. And then they're like, okay, cool, you want to like use our facilities? And I was like, sure, yeah, sure. And then they were producing this show called Backstage. They're like, Aviva, you should audition for this. Aren't you an actor? And I was like, yeah, I actually have an audition for it in my email. Like, I just got an audition for this. So it just was like super.
Oh, wow. So it really they kind of pulled you in because of your music and not the other way around.
Yeah, which is
Wow. I
weird
was
because
just
that's,
assuming like, oh, you were on the show and then somebody found it and they're like, oh, well, she's on the, we know who she is. So let's see what's going on.
yeah, it was the
That's so
opposite.
cool.
Yeah.
Even more validating, I'm sure, for you as far as your songwriting, right?
Well, at the time I was kind of like, oh, all right. Like, I didn't know what the hell was happening. And but yeah, I look back now and I'm like, even just talking about it right now, I'm kind of taking it in. Like, that was insane. And like, I always feel like people are like kind of mad at me when they hear that that's my story. Like, oh yeah, I put up 2 songs on SoundCloud, and then I was in like a producer's office the next, the next week. So
Yeah, but I mean, I guess it just depends on it. You're like you said, it had a few thousand plays, but it took one person out of those 3,000 that actually had a voice or had some sort of connection
yeah,
to kind of make everything align. And obviously, your track record shows that the song was good, right? I mean, if it wasn't a good song and he presented it and the other person's like, yeah, we'll give you a shot, and then you're gone, right? It's like,
right,
but the fact
totally.
that people are resonating with it, especially after the fact, I mean, all your new songs and everything you have going on, it's the person didn't, make a bad choice.
Thank you.
But you know
Thank
what I mean?
you.
Like if people were thinking that, like, oh, you just this 3,000, but it's like, yeah, but the song works and you're a great singer and a songwriter and actress or whatever. But like, yeah, anyway.
Yeah,
So that,
thanks.
yeah. So that happens. And then you're on the show. And then because I know you still do a lot of acting, but when that all happens, like, do you continue really pushing your songwriting, or is it like, okay, now I'm on the show, I need to kind of focus on my acting, or have you always kind of simultaneously done both?
Actually, like I feel like this year was the first, or not this year, like the last couple years were the first, like since the pandemic, when I started taking like my career more seriously. But like when I was on the show, for me it was like best friend summer camp. Like I wasn't thinking of it like, oh, I want to do more acting. I wasn't thinking about having a job because I was like 17, and like I was just basically at that point like, this is better than being a cashier at Loblaws, which is what I was
Right,
doing
right.
before. So I was like, I'll take it. But at that time I didn't really know like what I wanted to do, and I was really focused on like the friends I made on that show, and like I also like fell in love for the first time on that show. And so like I was just kind of like in that world and not thinking about work. It's just
Mhm.
kind of like I want to have these people in my life forever.
Right.
Yeah. And then I started, yeah, thinking more about like what I actually want to do. I think in the pandemic, when everything kind of stopped, I was like, okay, you know, the world ended tomorrow. What would I want to be doing?
And then you went, so that kind of drew you back into songwriting.
Yeah, I think like I always was doing it. Like I was always doing songwriting and acting, and as much as I could, because it's just like what I've always done. But
Mhm.
then when I was in the pandemic, I think that's when I was like, no, like this is serious. I really love this. And so I started like taking it more seriously within myself, even though it was like it was working out externally, but like internally I wasn't like fully committed. I was just kind of like, we'll see where this goes.
Right. I mean, you put out a couple songs even prior to 2020 that have a lot of streams, like on Spotify and stuff. But it was like you had like one out in 2018, I think, and then one in 2019. So once the pandemic happened, was that you put out a whole project out, right? I mean, in 2020. So were you
Mhm.
able to kind of sit down and be like, okay, this is really what I want to be doing, or I want to focus on this? And is that kind of what birthed all of those songs that became that EP?
I think so. Yeah. I think like that was, yeah, probably right when I started taking it more seriously, when I started realizing like at the time we were traveling to write songs, which I'd never done, and I was like, that's crazy. And
Hmm.
then we were writing with people where again like miracle synchronicities, like I was like, oh my god, this person's worked with like Rae Jepsen and had done work on The Next Star, which is like a Canadian show that I like auditioned for when I was little, like three
Oh, wow.
times and I never got on to the show. I never made it. But like now I'm working with the producers who worked on that show, and I'm working with, so it was like hitting me. I was like, this is like working. And so I was like, this is going well for me.
You're
So I was like,
right.
okay. And so that was like January of 2020. I basically wrote that whole EP. And
Oh,
I think
okay.
you're right. Like, I think you're right. Like, I think it was like right around then that I was like, I'm going to start taking this more seriously. And then like March happened, and then I
Yeah,
was
so you
stuck
were working
inside.
on it in January, and then March happens, and then are you like, okay, well, I have this EP, and I really wanted to start doing this. Now what? How do I like? How did you handle that? Is it just
Yeah, it was.
getting the word out there? Is it like, okay, well, now it's all going online. I have to just focus on it that way.
Yeah, I think I was like resentful at first, where I was like, damn it. It's like
Hmm.
it felt like a
Right.
wrench in my plans, but especially because like I had a song go viral like right before too. And so it was like it felt like it was a little bit of like a halt.
Hmm.
Um
Oh, so are
and
you talking about Princesses Don't Cry, or is that
yeah,
later? Okay, so that blew up before the pandemic.
yeah, at the end of 2019.
Oh, interesting. Okay, well, I'm curious to hear about that. And
Yeah.
how did that happen?
So that happened because this is a an old song of mine actually. I so this was on my very first ever EP called Songs About Boys, which I released under my actual name, Aviva.
Okay.
And it had been out for 3 years. And my friends started sending me TikToks of like people using my song in them. And I was just kind of like, oh, cool. That's awesome. Um, and then I started noticing like people from all over were sending me these like, hey, yo, this TikTok has like millions of views. And I'm like, what the hell? So I checked my Spotify numbers, and like the streaming went from like, over the past 3 years to like just started like going up. And I was like, okay, like that's really cool. But I didn't think anything of it. I was just kind of like, okay, cool. It's getting a moment. But at the time I was signed to a label, I had like management and all that. And so they were like, this does not happen. Like we need to re-release this single. We got to make a music video. And so at the time I was trying to do all this like dark music. Like I was super in my shit, and I was figuring out my new sound, and then this old song kind of blew up, and like it just, everything halted. So it was like everything halted for this song, and then it became all about this song. And then I was writing my new EP, trying to follow up this song now, being like, okay, well, now this song's doing well, I better release a really good EP. And then the pandemic happened, and then I was like, well, like, what the hell? So I was like,
Yeah.
at this point, it was just kind of like everything felt so out of my control. Like everything was just happening to me. And I was just rolling with the punches. Even now, I'm like, I feel like I just was like in a fog the whole time. I wasn't even fully taking in what was going on.
Mhm.
And I was just rolling with it. And then like the pandemic actually gave me time to breathe and like realize that like, okay, that song didn't blow up because I forced it to, or because I had
Right.
like a big marketing thing behind it. It blew up because of me. It blew up because it connected with people. And this is something that is a gift that I have. And I really want to like focus on that. And I want to stop trying to like follow up this Princesses Don't Cry song. I'm just going to keep doing me. And yeah, that was the switch for me. It was like, okay, I'm going to do me. I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to like release songs that I like. And then hopefully it just keeps working out.
Mhm. Yeah,
And if
because I
not,
guess
I'll go back to Loblaws.
well, I could see that it would be, you have the song that's working, and it's like, oh, do I chase kind of what that, that's
Yeah.
what that was doing. But it
Yeah.
sounds like
But
you
like,
even now you're just kind of like, I'm just gonna do whatever the hell I want.
yeah, even then I was kind of like, I don't want to chase it. I
Right.
was not on that like wave. I was just kind of like, who cares? But I'm not a super business forward thinker. So it's like I had a lot of like luckily I had like a big team around me who were like, hey, this is a good opportunity. And not to like, it wasn't like intentionally like anyone was like, we gotta chase this. We gotta make the next Princesses Don't Cry. Like no
Right.
one was saying that, but it was just like an undertone of like, hey, we have this opportunity, don't mess it up. Like let's release the next, it's gonna be even bigger than Princesses Don't Cry. And it's like it was a lot of pressure at the time I put
I
on
would
myself.
imagine that being a lot of pressure. And were you, when you put out the next one, was it like, are people going to react the same way? I mean, all of your songs do well, right? So it's like, when you put the next one out, are you worried like, okay, is this just going to go from up here to like now no one cares? And
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Like I right from when we released I think the next single after that was No More. And like when I released that, I was hoping like it would do as well. But like also I'm like, what, whose song does this well? Like it was just like, it's just like a once in a like million
right.
thing that
I mean, I
happens
guess
with
that
that
my
song.
question is not that it, not to compare it in that
Yeah.
sense, but it's like, to, I mean, that song just, you have millions of plays on it, right? So it's not like it went, it's not like you had, and people stick around. I guess my question would be more of like, were you concerned with, okay, people are latched onto this one thing, are they gonna stay and be fans? And they did,
Mhm.
right? I mean, I
Mhm.
could see that being kind of a worry in in anyone's head, right, at that point.
Yeah, I almost like decided they didn't care at first. I was like, no one cares about me. They just like this song. And like, I don't matter to them. They just like this song. And I was super like, at this point, still doubting my abilities and kind of just like, didn't get why this was happening. And so I was just kind of like, they don't care. Like, no one cares. And like, I didn't think I had done anything so profound yet. Like at the time, I just wanted to be like this like profound artist um who developed like a cult following or something. So I was like, oh, a viral song doesn't really fit into that. And I was like, well, yeah. And I don't know. I just kind of like assumed no one cared. And then I slowly started to like take in that people actually do care. And a lot of people stuck around from that song and like want to hear other songs that I'm doing. And um I feel like just recently, especially because like everything's kind of going back to normal, or like
Yeah.
the world is kind of moving along. Like I've noticed that like so many people really genuinely support me and what I'm doing, and not just because of the viral song. Like, and so that's, I feel super lucky about that, because I actually just didn't expect that at all. I was just like, this is gonna blow up and it's gonna go away. No one's gonna care.
Yeah. And obviously that wasn't the fact, 'cause that, especially you said that happened in January 29, 2020-ish, and now we're at 2023, which is wild. And you
Mhm.
still have people coming back, and you're releasing more music, and people are loving it. And with this, you have a new song, or it's coming out, Aquarius. Tell me a little bit about this. And you were talking about an EP. Like, are you working on another project moving forward here?
Yeah. So this next, so I'll talk about the single first. So Aquarius was written on Zoom in 2020 or in 2021. Wow. Yeah. Back
How was that?
Pandemic.
Was it weird writing on Zoom?
So fucking terrible. I think I wrote like 200 songs, and like I like 5 of them. Like, it was so hard. It was like pulling teeth to get anything over a computer. And I'm such a like hippie, like vibes girl. And so I was like, I can't feel the vibes. Like, there's no like synergy. Like, we all have to be
you got to church. It's like, if I'm like, okay, tell me your deepest secrets or whatever. It's like, let's, try to I guess, yeah, being able to be that vulnerable right away when you're like, okay, this person just popped up on my screen. Like, how am I gonna share certain things with them?
Like, it's also funny. Like, I met my therapist on Zoom because of the pandemic. And so like, even then I was like, it was the same thing. It's like, it takes longer to like feel comfortable with somebody you're not actually in the room with. And like in like a real session, you get there in the morning, you have time to get to know each other. You even have like a little break for lunch. Like, you're there all day writing this song.
Yeah. And you can kind of bullshit in between, like, probably like, oh, like you're drinking your coffee, you're just kind of hanging out, instead of like, okay, now it's the camera turns on, it's business
exactly
time.
And it's like, people have a very limited amount of time that we could be like really just sitting staring at a screen. Like, it was like 3 hours, and then people would be like, I have to go now, like, it was not the same. And it was so hard, but it was also like, it made me a better songwriter ultimately, because it forced me to like develop different skills than just vibes.
Right, just vibes.
So I was like, okay, that was a good thing. So Aquarius came out of it, and this song rocks. I love it. And it was one of those fluke ones, I feel like, that just came out of real chemistry over Zoom that was hard to find. And yeah, it's just like, it's cool. It's like dark and edgy, and like, it feels like the next evolution. It feels like I'm back at where I started before Princesses Don't Cry blew up, when I was like making a little more experimental pop and stuff. Like, this song feels in line with that, and that feels really good. But then at the same time feels like an evolution of me. So yeah, it's cool.
When you came into the song, like, did you come in with the idea of writing, Aquarius, or was it something that became out of a conversation, or how did you what's this, underlying tone of the song, like, as far as what does it mean?
Yeah, it did come from, well, I'm an Aquarius.
I was gonna say, I've kind of assumed, but I didn't want to ask and sound like a total moron. But
yeah, I'm an Aquarius. And I feel like at that time I was getting into astrology a lot and like learning a lot about it. And there was this stigma around Aquariuses that were like cold and aloof and like too cool. And I wanted to share like my perspective of it. And so like, I think that, so the song ended up being about like leaving behind relationships that were no longer like serving me. And maybe those people saw me as like cold or aloof or like uncaring, but it was like really just like me doing what I had to do, because like seeing the truth of the situation, it just wasn't a good situation, so I had to like get out. And like, yeah, I think that's really what was inspiring it, is like having people like not really see you, understand you, or think that you're this like kind of dick. But then like the chorus is like, Age of Aquarius, I want to run away, and I do care what you think about me, but I wish I didn't. And like, you can't see my emotions doesn't mean that they're not there. Yeah, so it's like that kind of musing. That was a lot of words, but then a song came out of it that makes sense, hopefully.
Yeah. No, I've had a chance to hear it. It's a really cool song.
Okay, thank you.
And then is this gonna be are you gonna put this towards a project, or what do you have moving forward? Obviously the song is just coming out, and that's gonna be a thing, but like moving forward,
yeah, moving forward, we have a few more singles like lined up from the last like 2 years that in the pandemic and stuff. I haven't released music, any of it. So we're releasing all of it as like singles.
Wow.
And then in the fall, hopefully, I don't know really when, but right now I'm working on like a full project. I don't know if it's an album or an EP, but I'm working on a full project in person with two of my favorite people, Mark Kosher and Lexi J from Featurette.
Mm-hmm.
And they were working on this fucking really cool project that is going to be it's like a whole picture. So I don't know if the singles that are coming out now are going to be on it. I'm not really sure. It's in the like beginning creative stages. So
Okay, that was
yeah,
going to be a question. If it's all kind of be part of what you're doing now, but you don't know yet.
I don't know yet because it's like so separate to me now that I'm like, oh, there's songs I wrote on Zoom in the pandemic, and then there's this like super full picture that I'm making with these same people. Like, so it just depends, I guess, on like what it ends up being at the
Mm-hmm.
end. Right now, I feel like Aquarius really fits with everything that we're doing. But yeah, I don't know yet.
I love it
Yeah.
though. That's awesome. Well, I appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was
Of
fun.
course. Awesome. Well, I do have one more quick question before I let you go. I want to know if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
The biggest thing I think for me, I'm trying to think of even just something in my life that's been relevant, because I almost said, put yourself out there, which is so true. Put yourself out there, because like that's the advice that my teacher gave me that changed my life. It's just like, just do it. Like the worst that's going to happen is you're going to like fail or make a mistake or like fall down, but you learn from those and they just make you a better artist. So just do it. I think that's really my advice. Just do it. Even, people are going to be mean. People are going to like tell you not to. People are going to not understand. They're going to try to push you away from it. And, eventually if it's your path, you'll know.